Welcome into the vault. We are fired up for this special edition. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you feel like you had a hand in making sure this episode came about. Just a couple of days ago, Bobby put out, like he always does, hey, which San Francisco media person should we reach out to? And of course, somebody jokes, Sarah, you have BYU connections. You should be best friends with Steve Young. And I was like, well, I'm not, but let me just see if his DMs are open. So I shoot him an invite. I didn't think he'd at all see it. So I put it on Twitter and I said, I shot my shot. Well, just a few moments ago, look who tweeted the classic Office picture of Michael Scott. He puts up the quote behind him. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, and then Michael Scott. So it is my absolute pleasure and honor to bring in three-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, two-time league MVP, BYU legend, and my personal football hero. Let's go, Steve Young. Here we go.
You guys are Sarah, you're doing a great job representing. I appreciate it. And it was super odd. A buddy of mine is helping me with my social, and he goes, do you want to respond to this? And I'm like, oh, yes. That's a hard yes. I want to be a part of that conversation. Because I've been having this conversation for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And you know, I kept screaming into the wind and no one listens to me and everyone just got mad. Like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I still feel as strongly about it as I did at the beginning. So you want to talk about Lamar Jackson? You got my attention.
All
and,
right.
I appreciate that, Sarah. And it's great to reconnect the BYU connection. And we've had some BYU boys go through Baltimore. You know,
yeah,
Todd
we do,
Heaps.
Van Noy.
Right, Van Noy. We've had some boys come through there, so we got connections. It's good.
We definitely do. And Bobby, nobody knows on this channel that I went to BYU, right? Like I almost never ever mention it.
Oh, literally, Steve. Yeah, like all week long, people have been asking, like, wait a second. Even though she's had it in her bio, Sarah went to BYU. Heck yeah, she did.
Yeah, Sarah needs to help us with recruiting right now. We are not recruiting well, and that's going to cost us. Sarah, you need to agitate for better recruiting, all right? Because we are not keeping up our end of the bargain. So that's your next. After you got this one, you shot your shot. We're in. Now you got to go fix BYU recruiting.
I'll start shooting everywhere. Yeah. Well, listen, you're referring to, I've said you're my legend, right? But I don't know if you know this. You are now a legend in Baltimore because of that rant you went on. I think it was Monday Night Football. Yeah. And you blasted the Ravens for misusing Lamar Jackson. So what I want to do is we brought in just 60 seconds of that. So we'll remind everybody what you said, remind you what you said, and then we'll go from there. So here we go.
My position is they will never get to championship football without a sophisticated passing game. That's not anything to do with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a complete player that is being not trained in being a sophisticated passer. They double down again back to all the great things that Lamar does, great. But until he gets the chance to show that he is a sophisticated passer of the football in a sophisticated passing game that is properly, invested in, which they never have done, to Robert's point just a minute ago. They don't invest in it, they don't teach it, and now you ask them, why isn't he getting paid to be Patrick Mahomes? Because they haven't given him a chance to be Patrick Mahomes. So until they do, Lamar Jackson's damned because of what the Ravens are doing, not because of Lamar Jackson. I can't wait for someone to train Lamar Jackson to a sophisticated passing game. I think he'd be the greatest player in the history of the game. Yeah. But he's being held back by the Ravens year after year because they keep doubling down. I want the full measure, Robert, of who Lamar Jackson is. And the full measure is not being brought forward by the Ravens. And if that's not the case, then get out and find someone who will.
All right. So why don't we begin here, Steve? The quote there that stood out to us is, I think Lamar could be the greatest player in the history of the game if given the opportunity. As you know, there have been plenty who have said he can't survive as an NFL quarterback, and look what he's done ever since. So I guess to begin with, what did you see in him to say a statement like that on national television?
All right. So let's build a foundation so that we're all, you might not agree with me, at least you understand where I'm coming from. The game changed 5 or 6 years ago when they tried to make it more safe and didn't allow defenders to launch their bodies into, offensive players, and that slowed the game down. You can't cover as much ground if you don't launch. And so what happened is the game got more wide open. And you can see the changes in offensive production. You can see, as quarterbacks, you can just see the space that's been created. It's very college-like now. And the guys that run the league today from the quarterback position are the guys that can throw it. And it's like you say in college, a runner who can throw. That's a dual threat quarterback in college. But in the pros, it's a sophisticated thrower of the football who can run. Those are the guys that run the table and can take it every year and be in the Super Bowl. And you see Patrick Mahomes do that. I firmly believe, and see, remember, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, Michael Vick. These are my people. Like I feel a tremendous kinship to the challenge of being mobile and playing the position. I don't relate as much to Peyton and to Dan Marino. Like, they played a different game because of the capabilities that they had. And so those are unique challenges that they can speak to that I actually can't speak to as well. But the game, in some ways, in the last 20 years since I retired, has come to me. Like, it's the game that I was the oddity back 20 years ago. Now it's you're the prototype. And so when I see my people, my guys in a situation that's not being, given the opportunity to flourish, then I'm going to speak up. And so that's where this got started, because what happened, and you could see it through the years, the Ravens took Lamar and said, we're going to do the things that Lamar's great at. We're going to double down in the pros. And you thought, well, that's impossible. But with the games, the rule changes, you can now, with the space that's been created, you can do that, and you can develop the most sophisticated running game in history, which they did. And I give Greg Roman and John Harbaugh tremendous credit for developing the most sophisticated running game. And I'm in the history of the game, fine, argue with me, say that's not true, but whatever. But it was amazing. And that rank and file regular season games, they smashed people. They bullied them and they smashed people. But you could see every year they hit a wall because they'd run into the guys that had the sophisticated passing game who could run. And now he couldn't keep up. And I'm like, don't tell me Lamar that's Lamar. He can't do certain things. He can't, I pull my hair out with people who had said, and I think there were sometimes people inside the building in Baltimore that said, I don't know that he can be that guy. And that's when you could see, the more I talked on that thing, you could see more of the emotion that I had that had been built up, because do not diminish the potential of what Lamar Jackson can be in the game today. The game is his game. And if he can develop into a sophisticated passer, which includes, more weapons, sophisticated passing, play caller, installer, all the things that you have to have that you see the guys around the league that are thriving have. And I just argued for it. And then you saw last year, they said, you know what? It seemed like there was a philosophical change. Like, we're going to go in, we're going to get the receivers. We're going to double down on not just being the most sophisticated running game in the history, but we're going to actually go out and become and compete. And the end of the season in January, February, we know we've got to change. And so I didn't get a lot of chances to talk about it because this year, but I've admired and the humility and the savviness of John and the people inside the building that have done this, because to me, I think it opens up the possibility for a big victory on Monday night and wins in January, and you saw the growing pains early in the season as they try to transition. There's growing pains, and Lamar's going to have growing pains as he, and that's not over, by the way. We're kind of just starting it. And so, is it ahead of schedule? It feels like a little bit, but if they continue to kind of press in and lean in, I'm worried, because you look at the stats and nobody runs the ball more than the Ravens do right now, and so there's this tendency to go to the things that that you're comfortable with. And I beg them to just continue to take the chances to let him develop, because I still believe that, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar could be the greatest player. And you see Patrick headed that direction. And I think Lamar and he could go head to head for, 10 more years. And I just want it to happen. So anyway, that's the foundation of why I'm emotional about it, because I feel if I was in Lamar's shoes, and I understand them generally, he can move like better than me. I get that, but the game we play is resonant to me. And if I was in his shoes, I want to speak for him. He hasn't asked me to do that, but I feel like I'm the older guy. I got to speak for my guys.
Well, and Steve, here's what's also, I'm guessing part of the emotion that comes from, a lot of people don't know this, but when you went to BYU, coaches put you to defensive back, partly because you were a lefty and partly because you were athletic. And they're like, what? You're athletic. You can go tackle these guys. We don't know how to coach a lefty. And so I guess I'm wondering, do you see some of Lamar in you? Is that where the emotion comes from? Because coaches gave up on you, but then I think Jim McMahon helped you come along, all of that.
100%. Lavelle Edwards, after my freshman year, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, Doug Scoville, said, I don't want to coach a lefty. And this Lavelle goes, well, I guess, Steve, we got to find a spot for you. You're super fast. You're probably too fast for quarterback anyway. Let's put you at corner safety. And so for 3 months in the winter, I actually moved over to defense and hated it. I was like, oh my God, I just want to get out of this. This is like, I want to throw up in my mouth. I just couldn't stand it. And then they traded. Doug Scoville left for San Diego State. Tread Tolner came in and asked me, because I kept throwing with the quarterback after practice, just because I was having so much fun at it. And I'd gotten so much better watching Jim McMahon. You mentioned that, Sarah. And watching Jim, and he, as crazy as Jim McMahon was, technically, he was a technician of the quarterback position as anyone's ever played. You're like, no way, that's not Jim McMahon. I'm telling you. And so I just ate up everything he was doing my freshman year, and I got significantly better throughout my freshman year. And I was having fun. I was like, I can throw it right there. And so as I was throwing with the guys after practice, Ted Toner came up and said, why are you moving to defense? And I go, I don't want to be. I hate it. And so I'm lefty. And he said he couldn't coach a lefty. And he says, I'm too fast. And he's like, well, that's stupid. And he went into Lavelle and got me 2 weeks of spring ball to kind of test it out. And then the rest is history. So those are the kind of things that I was up against. And it's funny now, 35 years later, the same things are happening. It's not as bad because now the prototype is, Patrick and Lamar. You're going to see Bryce Young. They're going to draft that kind of a guy into the future because there's too many yards to go get with your legs. You can't win championships. Now, Brock Purdy might prove me wrong just because of the amazing array of talent that they have. Yeah. But generally, Super Bowls in the future will be won by the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And I want Lamar in the middle of that. But I want Lamar with 3 Super Bowl championships. And so that I absolutely, Sarah, feel completely connected to what the challenge that Lamar has into playing great football and great quarterbacking is the challenge that I had.
Steve, why do you think that there was an unwillingness to buy into what you were trying to get across a year or so ago when you had this initial conversation?
Well, because there's a complete commitment to the other way. And I think there was some that felt that maybe this was the highest and best use for Lamar.
Internally, you kind of referenced that a second ago.
I don't know. Look, I'm not speaking that I heard it from anybody. I'm just saying they voted with their feet, right? They were showing us what they believed, and they believed that we are going to win Super Bowls by running, sophisticated running game, and let Lamar just be a Superman. And I'd like, no, the game's too hard to just be Superman. And it's amazing what he does every week, let's be honest. But if we're really going to get there, it's going to be because we get great weapons around him. We develop a sophisticated passing game. And then out of the huddle, the play that's called in the huddle becomes the thing. 85% of the time, that's the thing that matters. That's the thing that's when you win championship football games, when that's happening. And then that extra 15%, things are just so wide open. Lamar's running for 100 yards in a playoff game because of what's happening coming out of the huddle. Yeah. And because of the sophistication, because it's on time, because it delivers, and because it just puts so much pressure on defenses, the Superman cape comes on more naturally. You've seen that with Patrick Mahomes. He came into the league and wanted to be Superman. Remember, they got beat by, they were up on Buffalo in the championship game, and then he wanted to try to create all this crazy stuff, and then he ended up getting beat, and he went back to school, and I admire him for that. And he became a much better quarterback because he recognized out of the huddle, I need to be, people say game manager. It's really, that's call the play, read the defense, deliver the ball, take the yards, move to the next play, do it again. And then when something goes haywire, I'm an assassin because I can now run for 30 and for scores and for first downs that are key, clutch, first downs that are make a big difference. And so, yeah, I don't remember what the original question is, but that's where I,
the unwillingness.
Yeah, it was the unwillingness.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the way it was done. So, Steve, here we are a year later, almost about a year later from when we were on ESPN saying that. Since then, the Ravens, whether it was because of you or not, they moved on from Greg Roman.
Look, I begged them to do it, and they did it. So
yeah.
I don't think they listened to me, but
Steve, I promise you they heard it. I worked in that building for 13 years. I promise you they heard it.
Well, I was energized because I'm energized around the guys that can change the game and can create. Again, the full measure of Lamar Jackson we have not seen, and I want that. I crave that because I crave it for we've talked about it ad nauseum now, but it's like I crave it because I felt that. Yeah. I felt the power of sophisticated throwing, passing titles, efficiency records, and what that did to defenses, and then the ability to run. And then when you take Lamar's ability to run, I want that for him so badly. And it seems like they're on their way to doing it. I'm just so grateful for that for him.
That was what I was going to ask. So now that you watch them, they've got Todd Monken. They drafted Zay Flowers first round. Seems to be a good pick so far. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr., a couple other things. Where do you look at them now? Obviously, to me, even watching them, and even they say they haven't hit their best game yet. But now that you watch them, do you feel like they're at least getting closer to that sophisticated passing game that could set them up for a championship? Okay,
I believe the fundamentals and the effort and the people and the process that you need to put into place, I think, is being put into place. The problem is, and it seems like it is the bug of the Ravens, is injury with Andrews, and now you lost your running back. Now OBJ might not be in. It's like we need everybody. You see what's happening with San Francisco right now. Everyone's healthy. Mm-hmm. And then they have guys coming out of their ears. And so when everybody's healthy, you can really get the full measure of all that. So I think they've committed to it. I think they've set the infrastructure and the process to go do it. And now we just need all the people to get, and then someone won't come back. And so it can't happen this season. But, I worry that I just don't want them to give up on it because, look, they're 11-3. They're leaning into it. It's coming. I think, do you guys see? I mean, I feel like it's coming, it's happening, and I just keep going. And the injuries will slow you down a little bit, but don't give in, and then the big games like Monday night, then it's just make plays. That's when you put on the cape, do whatever you want. They don't need to prove anything to me Monday night that we're committed to the throw. No, just go win the game. Go do what you need to do. But overall, a season-long effort, and then into January. Show me that there's that. And I think that's how you win Monday night, is that he is 20 of 24 for 250 and a lot of check downs, balls to the flat, play after play, making defenses go tackle, making defenses cover the whole field, and then him knifing with his feet. That's the way to beat him,
So Steve, you've touched on some of this before. And I think one of the reasons, aside from the BYU connection, why we were so fired up to have you on is you can relate to this guy from a quarterback standpoint, from an athletic standpoint. So you've said that he's a game-changing quarterback. Obviously, he has changed the game in 6 years. Let's be honest, what he's done for the position. You've said that you think he can be the best. In a lot of ways, he's revolutionized the game. Maybe. How do the Ravens get the full measure of 8 over the duration of this 5-year deal?
Well, we said it. It's the weapons, the commitment to the process to have a sophisticated passing game, and that is multi-layered. I mean, look what's happened. Watch Patrick Mahomes, watch Josh, watch what the 49ers are doing out of the huddle. I mean, watch what Brock is like, an efficiency guru. Just give me the play. The play is the thing. The play is king. And now the ball's coming out. The ball's coming out early. The ball's coming out often. And there's a stat right now that they've thrown, I don't remember how many, 50 throws behind the line of scrimmage, 0 yards throws, which is screens, slip screens, everything else, which is really 95% completion rate. The average yards per attempt of their 0 yard throws leads the league. It's better than anyone else in the league. Average yards per attempt with all throws, like downfield, bombs. They're behind the line of scrimmage throws leads the league in yards per attempt. That's what we're talking about. Like, that's the efficiency. If Lamar could be in that kind of a system with that kind of productivity and efficiency, his legs, they would I've said this before, they'd have to outlaw him. They'd be like, oh, no, we need another league for you. You need to go somewhere else because you'd score 100 points. Like, I know I'm exaggerating, but I think that, you'd have no chance to stop them. And that's where they've got to get to.
So, Steve, let's flip over to this game on Christmas night. This might be the game of the year. We'll see.
Do we have agreement? Do we feel that, like, how do you guys want to critique that, or you want to poke holes in it? What do you want to do?
Listen, I am in 1,000% agreement. In fact, we just played on a show earlier today, Chris Sims from Pro Football Talk, saying, Ravens, stop trying to prove something with Lamar. Just start running. And it's like, whoa, Chris. Like, the Ravens are number one in attempts of rushes. Yes, thank you, Steve. And they're number one in rushing yards. The Ravens know how to rush. Tony Dungy, after that Sunday night game against Jacksonville, Tony Dungy came on and he was talking with, I can't remember his whole crew's name, Rodney. And he was like, I get the feeling they're still experimenting. Dungy was like, they know they can run. That's my feeling. We already know you can run, even with Keith Mitchell going down.
Honestly, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Yes.
Let's go back to the thing that will not give us what we want in January. Like, we've given up on that. And so please ignore, delete, Control, Alt, delete. No, I appreciate you guys supporting that, because I know I'm right. I've seen it in my own game. I've seen it now in the game today. That's so amazing. I wish I could play today. The flats are open from the middle of the field's unpatrolled. Then no one can hit the quarterback. This is just, you get $60 million to play. It's insanity.
Clean living.
Great.
Well, Steve, let me ask you one more question about Lamar then. Here's my only question. We've talked about what the Ravens need to do in terms of weapons and getting the right plays and all that kind of stuff and leaning into it. I really do think they're trying to do that. Here's my question from Lamar as a Hall of Fame quarterback. Is there anything specifically when you watch Lamar, what he can do personally, not the team, but what he can do to take another step up?
I love that question. And I would say it simply, and this is more in the off-season work that you need to do, but to metaphorically or theoretically tie your legs. In other words, I'm going to learn the game that Tom Brady plays or that Peyton Manning plays. I'm going to take my legs away emotionally, mentally. Like, I'm going to try to be in that space where I can't just take off and I have nowhere to go. And I think that's, Sid Gilman was one of the great gurus. He was like 75, 80 years old when he coached me, and he was one of the four, he was amazing with the Chargers back in the day. And we were practicing one day when I was in the LA Express, when I was in the USFL my first year. And he said, go get me a rope, give me a rope. I want a rope. So they went and ran inside and got a rope, and he literally stopped practice and tied my legs. And it was funny. It was like, oh, it's really funny. Now where are you going to go? You know what I mean? But that process was an important part of the process. Bill Walsh saying, Steve, no one knows where you're going to be. Like, run the play. Then, I'm not going to celebrate when you just run. I'd scramble for a first down or a touchdown. And he'd be like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, well, I just scored a touchdown. Like, yeah, but the team needs you to run the play. And so I think that in many ways, that's the mental process that everyone has to go through. And I'm talking about everyone that's in my tribe. That's the challenge. And I say Lamar, and I think he has, he's thrown balls in the summertime in Phoenix and in Texas and places where I've run into people that have thrown with him, and he's thinking about it. And I appreciate that so much. But that's the next level, is where he can spend the time to figure out how to play as if he broke both legs. And now what do I got? And then develop that game. But yet, because I like Bill Walsh, when I first joined the 49ers, he told everybody, we're not going to tackle. That's table stakes. I know you can tackle. Let's work on timing. Same thing with Lamar. I know you can run. We don't need to work on that. That'll never go away. He'll be 40 years old and making people miss. I promise you. that is not a problem. And so this other part of it, and I think, Sarah, you've hit it too. It's not just getting weapons and not just getting the process and the commitment to a sophisticated passing game and then calling them in clutch situations and big games or week to week. It's really Lamar needs to make that transition. And I think he is chewing on that. And I just encourage him to keep chewing on it.
You'd be happy to know that even everybody that's on your side, let me tell you how big time Lamar's committed. It's the point where it's 9 seconds, 8 seconds before he throws. Cause he'll dodge,
I saw that.
he'll dodge somebody. You saw it with Smoot, right?
So I said at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, just run. I'm like, just let him cook. Let him test it. Let him. I appreciate you mentioning that because I did say it early in the season, and they're like, this is not working. This is crazy. And it's like, no, you've got to go through. There's a process to it.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say for fun, it's ahead of schedule. Just don't give up on it because the results will be for the Baltimore Ravens, possibly. I mean, let's be foolish. 4 Super Bowls in a row. I'm just you could, but if he could get to that place with the right people and all the things, he would be unstoppable. And like Patrick Mahomes, if he can get enough help, he's going to be in the Super Bowl every year. And so that's I want Lamar and Patrick kind of every year battling it out for who's in the Super Bowl.
Love it.
Steve, do you find yourself as somebody who had his own battles thousands and thousands of times, probably countless of times in the pocket? Do you find yourself watching him just astonished the way that he almost has a set of eyes in the back of his head, the way that he's able to evade defenders? I mean, look at what he did in Jacksonville on Sunday night. It's almost become second nature to him. As somebody who's made a lot of guys miss in your time, what do you make of this? It comes second nature to him.
So what happens is, and I remember watching film, and the coach said, "How did you know that the guy was bearing down on you?" You're like, I don't know. I have no recall of that of what happened, reaction. And I'm sure that he feels the same way. It's like, there's this sixth sense that gets built. And because you can make people miss and because you don't have to just stand there, you build this sixth sense that, and I'm sure a lot of times he goes, I don't remember why I did that. It was like a reaction that I, subconsciously, and he could make people miss much better than I could. So I think it just develops over time, and the confidence, that's what I'm saying. That talent you just described there, Bobby, I don't need him to work at that.
Right.
I don't need to practice it. I don't need him to think about it. I don't need to lean in on it. I want to kind of lean out of it, to be honest with you. And I want to lean into the other stuff because I think that's where the championships are going to be.
You think
Steve,
that?
Go ahead, Bobby.
Sorry, Sarah. You think that ability is still going to be there well over 10 years from now?
100%. I was 38 years old, making people miss. 100%. Stay healthy. Don't have any big injuries. Your joints feel good. And now in today's game, when they can't hit you anyway, look, I believe you can go into 4. I didn't leave the game because of my legs. I could still run. Well, honestly, I think I wore out. I just kind of emotionally wore out. Like you get older. It was a part of the game. The other thing that happened back then is like you get older and then everyone kind of looks at you funny. And so you get this and Tom broke that ceiling,
Yeah.
and I wish I would have broken that ceiling, to be honest with you. So, but you're never he'll be making people miss at 40 years old if he wants to.
Oh, I love that. Steve, can we talk about the MVP conversation? Obviously, you won league MVP twice. It's basically everybody's talking about Brock Purdy and Lamar as the top 2 guys, unless you want to give it to a non-quarterback. This game will probably help either side win it. What's your feeling about the MVP heading into this weekend?
Yeah, the MVP is a funny thing because it's like people want to have it defined. Okay, what are we voting on? Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like what is valuable? Is it the most important person? Is it the most valuable person? Is it the most impactful person? Is it and it's just it's a thing that everyone has an opinion about, but then they got to vote. And usually the best record and the most explosive player at quarterback gets it. Every once in a while it's a back. Christian McCaffrey, if he scores 4 touchdowns and, runs for 150 yards and that it could get hot and get it. If Lamar comes out and does something spectacular and wins the game, he's gonna jump in there and could take it. And then obviously Brock with his efficiency, and I just I don't know that I've seen an efficient offense like this for a long, long time, and they just wear you out with all the people coming out of the backfield. And so I would think the odds are that he gets it, just because how do you not? Like, he's first in everything. And here from last pick in the draft, the third stringer coming off the bench last year to this, it's one of the great stories. It's a movie. I'm sure it's like Kurt Warner in some ways, but I think that the Monday night is MVP night. Yeah. Because whatever comes out of that game, the kind of the star of that game probably has a little leg up on this MVP.
Right. Why is it that this game manager conversation comes with negative connotations in terms of the quarterback that's being called such?
Well, because anybody that can't win a game in the fourth quarter, bring a team back, do something spectacular, put a Superman cape on when everybody needs it, becomes a game manager, because that's the cut. Like, he can't do those special things. We recognize that significant part of the job is to be a game manager. That's what I'm actually talking about when I talk about efficiency, running the play out of the huddle. But that doesn't mean that game manager is a cut, because it means that you can't. You're not even good at, like, just the down to down stuff. Like, you're not great at that. But I think a lot of it has to come to this Superman cape that people expect you to have. And but again, a majority of the job is to be the best game manager in the league, and then have this Superman cape you put on, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I like Randall Cunningham and I would have these conversations around, can you make enough plays with a Superman cape on to win a championship? And I think Sid Gilman was the first one to tell me, Bill Walsh told me as well. It's like, there aren't enough plays for you to go win a championship with Superman cape on. You just can't do it. No human can do it. And I think you saw Lamar bump up against that as well. Yeah. And so there's that other part of it. So we get that.
All right, so now let's flip to the game. What do you kind of make of it? What are you going to be looking for? Matchups, like, and also it's San Francisco who has like star after star after star after star. And since you're on, a Ravens podcast, what's the Ravens road to pulling off an upset, since everybody's picking the 49ers?
Under 24 points. Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't win 36-35. It's just that if you're going to get expansive, the more expansive the 49ers get, I feel like the more dangerous they get. You know what I mean? And if you can kind of hold them down and keep it close, everyone says this every week, but I mean, and especially against the 49ers who are 30, 35, 40 points just spitting out all the time. You get into a tight ball game in the fourth quarter within 7 of, I think that's one way to do it, is just ferocious defense, and they show up. They're hurting on offense a little bit, and so Lamar's going to have to put out a Superman cape earlier than he probably would need and want to. And I'm probably, I've been arguing for all this stuff, and then there are exigent circumstances, and
right,
this might be exigent circumstances on Monday night. It's like, yeah, forget all that, Lamar. Go,
run,
just make it happen. Just make it happen. I don't care how you do it. I can see that happening. But the 49ers, defensively, they just are. They're the most talented team that you've seen in a long, long time, and they're efficient, and they don't read the headlines. They don't coming out of the locker room. You got a tremendous leadership group that are grounded and humble, and they just want to be great. You saw where Christian McCaffrey was asked, "What do you think you're MVP?" No, it's Trent Williams or it's Brock. It's not me, And then Brock's like, "No, it's Christian McCaffrey," and it's like that's the kind of guys that you have to go beat, and that's not easy. So start fast, keep it up, but if you get behind on these guys, you're going to be in trouble.
It's interesting that you make that point, because earlier today, Sarah and I were like, the only bulletin board material that's come out of this week is just externally. It's not happening internally for either one of these teams.
Both teams are being super respectful.
Well, because the Ravens are grounded. They've always been grounded, right? Maybe too much so is what we're trying to say. But and defensively always been bullies, and they're tough-minded, and they're just that group. And so that Monday night it'll be a war. but it's going to be a war that's that. I will say this: neither team has seen a team like they're about to play.
Yeah.
We don't see quarterbacks like Lamar. Like no one does. Like Lamar's 19-1 against the NFC because the NFC doesn't see him.
Right.
It's like, what is this? They can't practice it. They don't know what to do. And that's why that's unusual. And then the Ravens have not seen a team this efficient out of the huddle, like every play, just like, where's the ball coming from? It's coming, you lead the league in yards per attempt from 0-yard throws. Defenses are struggling.
Right.
And so that's the other. So in that way, there's some disfamiliarity for both of them that hopefully one of if the Ravens are going to do it, they have to take advantage of that.
Just for the record, Steve, have you seen enough from Odell Beckham Jr. to make you feel confident that he can be a major factor over the next month or so down the stretch?
If he's healthy, yes. And I think it creates that. And I hope he leans in to definitive route running. He was always such a great route runner and being specific and timed out. Like, I think everybody needs to say, whatever the play in the huddle, that's the king. Whatever else happens after, we're not going to worry about. That is what we're doing, and we're going to get 3 yards out of it. And we're going to do it 20 times in a row. And that has to be enough. And I think even the receivers have to, dive into that, because then, maybe they're not as explosive, but they're catching balls for 3, for 5, for 6, and over and over and over and over again. They have to be bought into that. And hopefully the OBJ is, because the same thing for him, he catches, if he catches 8 balls that are all for average for 6, 7 yards, great, because in the end, he's going to catch another 4 for 100. And that's how that happens. So
that's actually the next thing I'm looking for, Steve, is because Lamar is staying in the pocket buying time, but I want to see more in rhythm passing. And OBJ has even said, he's like, it's been a process to get Lamar into that. But like you said, Lamar hasn't even been taught that. So Lamar is like getting used to this on-time route receiver. And then it's like, can we get the offensive line to hold up, the receivers to do it, and Lamar to throw it right on time to get more rhythm passing? That's what I want to see more of.
And as long as they stay committed, it'll come. Mm-hmm. The game is more wide open. It's available for teams that are committed to it, and the innovative teams that are calling the plays in Minnesota and Philadelphia and Miami, in Kansas City and San Francisco and the Rams. I'm forgetting some, but they're all leaning into the innovation, what's happening with offense. And if the Ravens become that kind of a team that can come up with innovation, call the plays, do all those, get the receivers, get everybody on the same page, and do it in rhythm, and call and make the play out of the huddle the king, they're going to be right in the mix every year.
All right. Well, we've held you long beyond the 20 minutes.
I know it's fun. I know. My kids are like, "What are you doing, Dad?" I'm like, I'm dealing with something super important here. Right? I'm very passionate about it. And I said, you guys hit a nerve, as you can see. I'm sorry to drone on and on and on again, but just know I'm passionate about it, and I can't wait to see it continue to develop for Lamar. I think he's the best.
Let me just get this in, because my brothers and my dad are very jealous in this moment. So I told them I would ask them one BYU question for you before I let you go. Okay. So this is on behalf of Taylor, Steven, Jonathan, and Matthew. They better be happy now. I just put their names out there too. So they're asking, does BYU currently have their quarterback on the roster for the fall? And do you see the Cougars making the 12 playoff tournament within, say, 5 years?
You just saw the results of our recruiting class, and we're in the bottom half of the Big 12. And now we are thriving out of the portal. So we do get a lot of people back out of the portal. That seems to be the thing that we're really good at. I just don't believe that we can be in the top half of the Big 12 into the future unless we're in the top half of the Big 12 in recruiting year in, year out. And especially for LDS athletes that are around the country. I mean, we should win all of that. And we're not winning.
Right?
Those.
Why aren't we winning those?
Sarah, I've already tasked you. That's
two things.
That's your next assignment. I mean, I don't know if you missed it, but I did assign you specific issues that I want you to go fix, because I'm worried that and then you think about our quarterbacks. I don't know that our quarterback is on the roster. And then, what's coming out of the portal? Oh, let's find out. Like, let's go recruit some top line quarterbacks and beat USC and Utah and Texas and Georgia at some of these guys. Let's go beat them. Let's take them head on. We'll lose a lot of them. That's fine too. I don't mind getting beat, but I'm going to win some. And I got to get the mix, because I think in the Big 12, you saw this year, we were able to rise up throughout the years for a big ball game at Tennessee or Texas Tech, and we look great. And they're like, man, BYU, punching above their weight. All of a sudden, you play Texas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and you play them 6 weeks in a row. It's a different ball game, and we saw that this year. And so we've got to get bigger, stronger, faster, and we got to get serious about this recruiting. So,
amen.
And that starts with Sarah.
I look forward to the results.
Hey guys, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. Steve Young, tell your family thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. I guarantee you, our fans are going to eat this up.
Thanks, Sarah. I feel like I've been on the couch. You're giving me therapy. It's like it's a good mental health day, because I got all this out of me. Like, I've been thinking about it. I have no outlets. Like, you gave me an outlet. I'm so grateful.
Anytime you need an outlet, we are here for you.
Yep. All right. Well, if this story develops, and I'd be interested in just, and you guys keep track of it. Like, if there's something, or if somebody starts to give up on it, if you start smelling that they're giving up on it, put the alarm out, because we're gonna throw flames into the building. We're not gonna put up with that. We're not doing that. We're not going backwards. No, Chris Sims, we're not going backwards. We're going forwards.
I love it.
Love it.
All right.
Have a good one, Steve.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Take care. See ya.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Oh man,
I can't believe that just happened, Bobby.
And we're staying right now, because I want your raw reaction. We are not doing a taped separate outro, because that was all for your doing, right? That was from your doing right there, and that was an awesome conversation.
My family thinks I'm done, but I'm still recording. We're recording.
Tell them to come in and say hello. If they want to come in and say hello mid-recording, they can, because
here's what's hilarious. My husband, Trevor, has never been this interested. He sat right here on the couch next to my desk listening to that whole thing.
Yep.
I've got, like, my office doors are glass. I've got, like, kids all lined up out there. It's hilarious.
Well, Trevor knows now how busy you're going to be, because you're going to be doing a daily podcast and recruiting for BYU football.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
And he's going to be your right-hand man, Steve Young. So I think you're in pretty good shape.
Do you have to read an ad first?
I do. You can gather
read
yourself.
your ad.
And this one's been brought to you by our friends at GEHA, as always. And for over 86 years, Government Employees Health Association has offered medical and dental benefits designed to meet the unique needs of federal employees and their retirees, military retirees, and their families. And with over 2 million members and growing, GEHA continues to serve those members and families who serve all of us every single day. Government Employees Health Association, your friend in federal since 1937. We know federal because we only provide benefits for federal. Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families for 86 years. You can visit GEHA.com to learn more. How you feeling?
I'm going to have to go back and listen to this, because I feel like I blacked out for the last 40 minutes. Like, I just don't even know.
Listen,
what just happened?
I have so much ingrained in my mind, because that was just a different experience for me than it was for you. Which, by the way, certainly equally as adrenaline filled. He was so good. He was so insightful. I learned so much from him. He has an affinity and a loyalty for Lamar Jackson. And it's not just because of the player. It's because of the game that those two play and played. It was incredible to listen to that.
Tell people right here, it was my second question I had lined up. I knew it, Bobby. I was like, the way he came so hard when it was like nobody else was saying it. And I was like, that's my question. I said, do you see yourself in Lamar? And I didn't want anybody to think I was saying that they're exactly the same person. Yes, they're both mobile, but that doesn't mean that they're the same. But I knew, Bobby, when he got moved to be defensive back at BYU, and like, I was like, what lazy coaching for a guy to come up. And granted, it was a different era, but for a guy to come up and say, I don't coach lefties. And so it's like, well, okay, I'm going to move him to defense because he's fast. Like, that is, I guarantee he saw that disrespect when he heard people saying, oh, Lamar can't make it. Lamar's going to be a wide receiver or whatever. Because he's like, my coaches didn't believe in me originally. And what he didn't explain there is that the offensive coordinator that said that to him, he was so lucky that offensive coordinator ended up getting a head coach job somewhere else. So a new offensive coordinator came in, and then he's the one that like gave, it was like they convinced Lavelle to give him 2 weeks at training camp. And then if at quarterback, and then they were like, oh, okay, we can do this, you know? And so I guarantee that's it. So when he said with such passion, like, you want to know why he's not paid like Patrick Mahomes? Because they don't give him a chance to. That was him speaking from within. He's like, I've been there before. People wrote me off before. And they just like, they're ready for a mold. And so he said that when he must have said so many different times, Bobby, it needs to be Lamar versus Mahomes every year fighting to get in the Super Bowl. And like
for the next 10 years. He thinks it can happen for the next 10 years between the two of them.
Well, and then he was saying like Lamar, he's like, I promise you Lamar's going to be juking people when he's 40. And I could have done it, but he just kind of wore out. And I feel him. He's like, I wish I could still be playing today. You know, I'm sure he does to play in a different NFL, but my goodness, that was good. And then the way he was like, at the end, he's like, we're going to set in flames. If anybody says to go back, we're starting a fire around here.
Yeah. And obviously we already know what your tasks are moving forward, but
yeah, clearly.
But he wants us to keep tabs.
Yeah.
On what happens here, the evolution of Lamar in Baltimore, and he wants to know about it if they start to backtrack. I mean, it's like he needed an outlet.
Yeah,
he needed an outlet. When you're at ESPN, you have to cover all 32 teams.
60-second takes. That's all you get. Yeah.
And when you don't have a connection to Baltimore, aside from the rant,
right,
you don't get that opportunity.
Right.
And so I immediately, within the first 2 minutes, was able to connect so much more to what he said a year ago. Was able to relate to. It all matched up for me. All the dots were put together in within the first 2 minutes of him, as he said, setting the foundation. It all made sense to me.
Yeah.
He has a personal, I don't want to call it vendetta, but there is personal stuff within him, the way that he's felt Lamar through 5 years of football.
Correct.
This is his 6th season, obviously, and now it's different because he's in a sophisticated passing offense.
Yeah.
He felt personally victimized almost on behalf of Lamar.
Right.
Watching what happened to him 20 plus years later. It was absolutely fascinating on so many levels. And
I told you before it started, it doesn't, in a way, like he speaks sort of the way I do, in that it does. I forget that I'm on camera sometimes, and the way he was speaking, it was not like it really was. I felt like I was in my living room talking to him. Do you know what I mean?
Sarah, he told you you felt like you made him feel like he was on the couch talking to a friend.
A therapy session, right? Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if he wants to do it weekly, we can. We can give therapy weekly.
Listen. I'm here. I could be. I'll help in a therapy session. I don't know.
You can't make this stuff up, man. You really cannot.
All I'm thinking in my mind, Bobby, is like, which clips are we going to pull? Because I need Lamar to hear all of this. Like, I want so badly. You know what I really want? Oh, you know what shot we should shoot next this offseason? Getting Lamar and Steve together and just let them talk. Listen.
We'll sit back, you know.
I know I just shot a half-court shot and I made it. This one's going to be like a Hail Mary from the 2-yard line to get that going. I know Steve would say yes. I guarantee you Steve would say yes.
Oh,
it's
he set his foundation. We just set ours, thanks to you. So
yeah, no, but I just want them to talk. I'm definitely going to pull quotes, and then we're just going to need Ravens Vault listeners to tag Lamar the heck out of him, because I want Lamar to hear it. I want Lamar to hear, and Lamar already does. Which is why, Lamar already knows, which is why he is more reluctant to run. He has been, Bobby. We've all seen it. He's way more reluctant to run. Even when even the other day when it was like the first yard marker was right there and he threw it, and that's when he had his interception. So it's like, I don't hate that you throw it. Just don't throw an interception again. But he's done that so many times. He's so reluctant that he mentally himself is putting the ropes on his legs. You know what I mean? To go ahead and throw it. I feel like he's already been doing that. But maybe Lamar doesn't need it, but I just want Lamar to hear all that encouragement. I just want him to hear it so badly, because Lamar, I already know he has so much inner self-confidence, but it would not hurt to hear that from a Hall of Famer at all.
Gosh, no. And it's funny too. He's like, look, Lamar, I'm not doing this. Or what did he say? He goes something along the lines of like, I'm not doing this for Lamar. I'm doing this for the position, or I'm doing this for what I think he can be. Right. Like he's like, he doesn't even know that I'm doing this. Or he said, referenced something along those lines. And I just appreciated that he's doing this solely based on the passion, obviously, for the game. But he sees, like you said, he sees himself in this generational player who he feels like was reaching not his ceiling, the ceiling that had been placed above him through 5 years in the league. And there's power. That's powerful. I mean,
totally.
He spoke with conviction. He spoke with emotion, just as he did a year ago on a much bigger platform. And it goes without saying, if you guys enjoyed this, this was obviously a big moment for us, all kickstarted because of Sarah's doing. But if you appreciated this, send it around, because we don't want this to be the last. We want this to be the first of many to come. So if you thought maybe somebody within your sphere of Ravens fans would enjoy this, please, would love for you to kind of send it around.
The last thing, Bobby, that I was really happy to hear about, because there was a part of me that was wondering, have the Ravens done enough to even satisfy Steve Young? And the answer essentially was yes. Like, he's saying it's a process.
Yeah.
But his answer is like, yeah. And he almost like, the other way he kind of like acknowledged that they did is he wouldn't take credit for all the changes, which is, who knows if that's, I'm sure they heard it. Like I said to him, I guarantee you they heard it. But to hear that he's like, listen, they still got more to do. But yeah, it's exactly what he asked for. So it made me really happy that he was like, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is how you do it. And so personally, now here's what's funny, Bobby, going forward, when I was calling for OBJ, remember I was doing it because I thought it was a time when I thought he would come cheap. It was at the end of 2021. No, 2022. I was thinking the Ravens could afford to pay him at the end of 2022 because he was just coming back from his injury, but he ended up not playing at all.
Yeah, he hadn't played at
all.
Yeah.
And then so the offseason came and I still wanted him, but I knew his price was going back up. So I was like, yeah, I want him, but the Ravens aren't going to, I just don't think there's money. I think after speaking to Steve, I'm going to be on that agenda, because OBJ is going to be done after this year. And as great as it'll be to have Zay Flowers into his second year, probably going to have Rashad Bateman going into his fourth. Mark Andrews will come back. You'll have Isaiah Likely. They need to go out and get another OBJ for Lamar. They can't do what Kansas City just did to Mahomes, because we see what it's doing to even Mahomes, and we've seen what it does to Lamar. So I'm no longer going to be shy about spending money at the wide receiver position. I have in the past play because I like the Ravens were my first team, and I remember
it was ingrained in you. You thought it was normal.
It was ingrained remember that story I told you? I remember I wrote a late for work about how the Ravens don't spend a lot, and I won't tell you who it was, but a very high up person in the scouting department came down to my desk, and I had it open, and it was basically a critical headline of the Ravens not buying a wide receiver. And I joked when he came down to my desk, and I was like, oh, don't read that. And he's like, oh, why? And he reads it. He's like, and this is the Joe Flacco years. This wasn't Lamar Jackson years. And he goes, well, it's true. And he goes, it's because Joe doesn't need it. We don't need to spend a lot at wide receiver. So I know that was the philosophy. Yep. I know it was. Yep. And I think it continued with Lamar for a while. But I think Steve's right. Like, if you have a guy that he thinks can perennially go head to head with Mahomes every year, then get him the weapons. Get it done.
Boy, does he ever believe that. And does he ever believe
in
Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
He is, I think we may have just formally met the biggest Lamar Jackson believer in the history of time.
Right.
I mean, that was something else.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we didn't share a couple injury reports just so that everybody is up to speed. This is as of Friday evening, just so you know, just in case by the time you watch this, there might be a full injury report out going into Monday Night Football. But not a bad sheet here, including Odell Beckham Jr., who was a full participant after missing earlier in the week. He missed the Thursday with an illness. Jalen Armour-Davis, DNPs so far to begin the week. Again, there's one more practice before the injury report. He has a concussion. Zay Flowers, this is probably most encouraging, and Ronnie Stanley and Marcus Williams, all full participants. Arthur Maulett's dealing with a knee setback. He was a DNP, and Malik Ham remains a full participant with an ankle on the IR/DR. So good news there. And then, Sarah, just because we've been tracking this closely for the San Francisco perspective, remember our guy, Eric Mattson, from the 49ers, Kyle Mattson. Sorry, Kyle. Kyle, Eric Armstead, and Javon Hargrave were key players that he wanted to look out for just based on the rushing attack and how stout they are in that department, run defense, I should say. But anyway, Armstead has been a DNP so far Thursday and Friday of this week, whereas Javon Hargrave was upgraded to limited on Friday. So we just got to keep watching those two, and rest other than that, those are kind of the most notable.
Yeah, even if they are there, attack them. Go right at him. He's got a hammy. Yep. If he's in there with that hammy, go right at him. Hey, and I'm not obviously don't want anybody get hurt. I don't mean go at him to hurt him, but I mean, you're out there. Let's go. Let's go.
Absolutely. As Steve said, go out and make plays. Make plays on primetime Monday Night Football. So this was fun. This is
by
one
far
of those
the best
ones.
interview I've ever done, and I've done a lot. That was by far the best interview I've ever done. That was good.
I will tell you that I will put that up. Again, for you, it's like an all-timer, right? I would put, because of the BYU connection, I'd put it up there with like Al Michaels because of my broadcasting affinity. Michael Phelps, like I'll put it up there in the upper echelon. That was because of how insightful it was. It's one thing about the name that puts it up there regardless, but it's up there because of the agenda that he had. And that was an agenda that he'd been sleeping on. He'd been sitting on that for a while.
He has.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny also because you know how what's the saying? Like, don't ever meet your heroes or whatever, the legends or whatever, because like they're just going to spoil it. That was like meeting, and I wanted to tell him this, but I didn't want to make him awkward, and I didn't want to like fangirl over him too much. I felt like the intro was enough or whatever, but like, it just took it from because he literally was the first person I remember watching football.
Yeah.
And so him and John Elway, because I grew up in Colorado and I remember John Elway quite a bit on our TV. But so like they tell you don't meet your legend, and that's just been so true for so many people. But to me, that was just like he was already here, and now it's like I didn't know it was possible to go, even higher. So that was cool.
Oh, he gave you all that and more. That was special. And I, again, just wanted to say congratulations, because this was your doing. This was your shot in the dark. This was your half-court shot, and you didn't just make it. You sunk that thing. It was nothing but net. And I was just happy to be along for the ride. So congratulations.
No, let's go. Let's go. We're building. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
never satisfied.
Never. Absolutely. Absolutely not. Thanks to our returning patrons. You guys get to be a part of a pretty special episode here, and deservingly so, because you guys have been on board for a while. And Sharu Hashmi is actually one of our small business Patreon title sponsors. So Mike Batting, Sharu Hashmi, thank you both for believing in what we're building here in Baltimore. And to Sarah's point, we are building it. If you want to hop on, visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. It's a great way to support us on the back end. If you don't want to do so monetarily right now, or you can't do so monetarily, free ways to do it. Pretty piece of cake. We always tell you about it. Subscribe to the Vault on YouTube. Check us out in the audio only space. If you feel inclined to do so after this, would love a rating or a review. Certainly would help, especially to get Steve's name out there. We're going to do our best to push this thing, but it would be really helpful for you. And go ahead and like this video too, so that other Ravens fans can discover maybe us and this interview. So with that, special thanks to GEHA for sponsoring this episode. And as always, a huge thank you to you, partner. This was a lot of fun. One that we'll definitely circle and come back to, I'm sure, and monitor, because that's what he told us to do. We're going to monitor this situation. We are going to be obedient here, all right, and listen to the legend, because that's what he wanted. And I hope that you guys got a lot from this, because I certainly learned a ton throughout that hour conversation. So special thanks to Steve Young, the Hall of Famer, the Super Bowl champion, the MVP, and somebody who is incredible when it comes to broadcasting too. Clearly, we've all, if you didn't know now, or if you didn't know prior, you know now that a lot of what he was able to do on the football field has definitely translated to broadcasting. So, partner, anything from you before we close?
No, I'm getting this recording, and I'm going to start pulling clips. We got to blow this thing up.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and shut this one down. Be on the lookout for it across all platforms. And for my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from Christmas weekend here. Hope you and yours have a great holiday, and we'll be with you for Monday Night Football and potentially the game of the year in San Francisco.